Palworld's initial launch went about as well as it possibly could, with it selling over 12 million copies on Steam alone. For a while, it seemed you couldn't turn any corner on the internet without seeing something about Palworld. But where does it stand now? Today I'd like to talk a little bit about Palworld's current state, as well as go over things that I think could vastly improve the game, and talk a little about Palworld's upcoming updates. Palworld had an amazing launch, selling over 12 million copies on Steam and reaching a peak player base of just over 2.1 million players all playing at once. Whilst on Xbox, Palworld was the biggest Game Pass release ever, with over 7 million players and a daily peak of just under 3 million. Now, you might think that Palworld has completely died off by now, but I'm here to reassure you that the game is still in a relatively healthy state. As of me writing this script on April 20th, 2024, Palworld's daily peak on Steam is 71,889 and sitting in the top 30 games on Steam. Now, that might not sound impressive compared to the stats I've just shown you, but considering Palworld is still in early access with not a lot of content outside of tower bosses and completing the Pal deck, which many players, including myself, have already done, I would still consider this quite good. And I do perhaps have a solution to this problem, which I will talk about a little later on, but first I want to quickly talk about Palworld's latest update and its updates that are soon to come. So, Palworld's most recent major update, version 0.2.0.6, was Palworld's biggest update yet, which I did make a full video about if you want to learn more. But to sum it up briefly, we got our first piece of real endgame content in the form of a raid boss called Bella Noir, Bella Noir Libero, and Bella Noir Libero Ultra. I'm not gonna lie, the name is hard to say with my accent. These bosses drop some new items which allow you to craft 2 new accessories, the ability glasses and the electric egg incubator. We also got some new base additions like the ore mining site, which allows players to assign pals to mine ore directly at your base. We can now also use Diamond and Kelp Seed to farm high quality pal oil and pal fluids at the ranch. In addition, we got a load of new bug fixes and quality of life changes, but the main thing I want to talk about from this update is the little dev note at the bottom of the Steam patch notes stating they are planning a much larger, more content-packed update for summer 2024, which will include never before seen scenery on an island with new pals, as well new buildings, weapons, and tower bosses. So this does sound like a pretty neat update with plenty of content for us to grind through. My prediction for this is that we will probably get access to the big island behind the snowy area with the big tree in the middle. When I first started playing, I actually thought you could get onto this island, only to be greeted with a big invisible wall. My reasoning for thinking this is that the island does actually look full, like it's been modelled and not just a 2D texture that's been added to give it a bit more background scenery. But I could be wrong, as they did say never before seen scenery, and we can quite clearly see that in the background. Palworld do also continue to give us small updates here and there, mainly bug fixes, with patch 0.2.1 fixing a bug where eggs were unable to be placed inside of egg incubators, and patch 0.2.2 fixing a bug with pals attack damage. We also just got our first look at PvP through the brand new Palworld Arena teaser. I honestly have mixed opinions about this, as I actually think that pals will need a general buff overall, as currently the most effective way that I have found to take down anything is through player builds, using pals like Gobfin to simply maximize the amount of damage the player does. We may also need something to make fights more interesting, because if you're just in a flat arena, then fights will simply be stand and shoot without much strategy. But let me know in the comments what you're thinking of Palworld Arena, because I am always excited for new content. Alright, let's talk about what I think can be done to improve on Palworld a bit. So going back to the whole player base dropping thing, we already know that Palworld has very little content outside of progression, which is fine because the game is still in early access. So what I think Pocket Pair needs to do in order to keep people playing is to keep them in the progression stages of the game by disabling the ability to edit some of the world settings, like being able to set the XP rate to 5 times what it normally is and setting damage to pals like 20 times what it normally is, and all the other settings that speed up the progression by crazy amounts. My most recent video I posted was actually a playthrough of the entire game, which was defeating all of the tower bosses, with every single one of these overpowered settings set to max, and I was able to complete the game in about 4 hours, excluding AFK time. Now, that's not to say I want to completely remove the ability to edit your world to how you like. I just personally think that it needs to be a bit more limited to certain things like setting the day and nighttime speed, which would stop players from finishing the game in a few hours. So moving on, I'd like to talk about the breeding system a bit, as I would love to see some changes here, as it's currently a little frustrating to have to breed between 2 and 500 pals before getting the passives that I want. So pals can have a maximum of 4 passives at once, and when pals breed together, the new pal is meant to be a mix of its parents' pals. But what I found is that the new pal very rarely has the passives of its parents, and it's given usually 1 to 2 of its parents' passives and then a load of random new passives. Now, I do think that the new pal should still have the chance to gain a different passive from its parents, but what frustrates me is that it takes me hundreds of breeds to get a new pal with the combined passive of its parents, which does become quite tedious after a while because of how long it takes to make cake, and then you're waiting for the egg to spawn, and then you're waiting for the egg to incubate, and you go through this entire process for the 134th time just to see that your new pal has logging foreman. In the most recent update, we got introduced to the brand new ore mining site, which I absolutely love, and I thought I could finally use my ore mining base for something else, but then I realized I still need to mine coal so that I can make refined ingots. So to put it shortly, I would really like to see a coal mining site or some other way to farm coal directly at your base, since we've now got access to all the ore we could possibly want, but paired with my 6 pieces of coal, it's not going to get very far. Now, I really like the idea of legendary schematics, as it gives endgame players something to farm and something to collect, but I think we could really improve on this. Personally, I think that the idea I have come up with here is really good, so please listen carefully and please tell me what you think about this in the comments. So I think we could implement a sort of gem system here. So what these gems could do is they are consumables that can be added to armor and weapons to give it certain stats and abilities. So as an example, I can add a gem to a piece of armor to give it protection from dragon type abilities, or a gem to protect from fire abilities or water abilities. You get the point. Same for weapons, add a gem to give my shotgun a boost against dark pals or water pals, or, since we have arena coming sometime this year, a gem that improves its damage against other players. And let's say a legendary piece of armor has 3 slots for gems and can be customized to how the player likes, so I could make my armor have a water protection gem, as well as a dragon and a dark protection gem. And if we really wanted to expand here, we could even add rare items that let you engrave extra slots into your armor for gems. So if my current armor has 3 gem slots, this rare item could be used to give it a 4th and then a 5th, and so on. Now, you might think that this may seem a little overpowered, and you're right. That's why I think it could be locked as a rare drop from raid bosses, as that would give players an actual reason to fight the boss besides the new crafting materials and the achievement. Yes, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. You know, we've got some good content coming, and I've given you what I would like to see in the game personally. And, you know, Palworld's still in a pretty decent spot. It's not as great as it was, but it's still pretty good. Feel free to go into the comments and let me know what you would like to be added to the game. You know, because I like reading all your comments. They make me very happy. But anyway, yep, you know the drill. Comment, subscribe, like, you know, all the good stuff. And thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.